everyone. How's it going? We are here to review Week 15 FanDuel tight ends. I got Jason here to review his article he put out. How's it going? And what's your view on this week's sort of vibe for tight ends?
It's not the greatest of weeks, but I feel like there's enough here to kind of go through and take a look at. I mean, I'm on pretty much a similar core that you are, coming over from the DK pod. It's going to be an interesting week, and I think this week we looked at last week, and we're on a couple of guys that went through and had decent weeks, but it's a good one to pay down at.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the general vibe I'm getting, and there aren't really that many pay-up options to begin with. So, cash game, you threw Kyle Rudolph in here against the Colts. Certainly a good matchup for tight ends in general. What are you looking at in this one?
A good discount from guys like Tyler Eifert, Travis Kelce, 5,800. Great matchup against the Colts, who are dead last against tight ends per Football Outsiders, 41.3% DVOA. Rudolph, guy who's going to get his share of targets, 7.5 per game this year. He's tied with Cameron Brate in terms of tight end touchdowns at 6. I just think in this game, I think there's a healthy team total here for Minnesota to kind of target, and I'm looking to do it with kind of those cheaper guys. So home matchup against a bad defense that's got a really bad interior core in terms of linebackers, in terms of safeties. The corner's got to deal with guys like Thielen and Diggs. I think Rudolph could be in for a pretty big game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Certainly thinking about it that way. I had him as a tournament guy. I'm not going to knock someone for having him as a cash game guy either. Travis Kelce, the other one you threw in there against this Titans team. Jeremy Maclin back, but we're hoping and praying. Please, Andy Reid. Please, Alex Smith. You're winning using this man as a featured guy. Please. Please. Right?
That's the thing. I mean, how do you get away from it at this point? Like you have, like, they gave you the recipe. Like,
it's right there.
The dinner turned out great each
turned
night.
Out great. We're all
eating
away
from the recipe.
It serves every fantasy player. We're all just eating it up. It tastes so great. And they're like, they got spam sitting there on the counter, and they're like, hey, but we still got this spam over here.
Yeah, it's like, no one wants that. No one does.
Nobody wants that. So Kelce at 69. You put him in cash. What are you looking at in this matchup, I guess?
So I think, obviously, I think Kyle Rudolph is my top guy because, one, $1,100 difference. You're paying up for a Bell or Johnson or McCoy or both of them. Kelsey's more of the, maybe you use a Devontae Freeman. Maybe you're going down that route and also paying up. So you got a little bit of a $1,000 difference from those top guys that you're still using mid-tier wide receivers. I think that's where you can get a good advantage to Kelce. As I point out here, targets over the last 7 weeks, 8, 8, 15, 9, 6, 7, 10. Obviously that came with most of it Maclin out. 4 straight games with 100-plus receiving yards. Has yet to find the end zone in that span, but is still putting up double-digit FanDuel points. Still a good red zone guy. I'm going to anticipate the Chiefs moving the ball quite a bit here against this Tennessee secondary. Pretty good cafe value for being 6,900, so I'm going to trust that. Cafe value has been pretty solid this year. So, while Jeremy Maclin's back, well, obviously, it's still him kind of being a focal point. I think we're still going to see Kelce roll.
I like it. GPP tight ends, Cameron Brate against the Cowboys. Cowboys haven't been that great against tight end this year. I guess, is this a contrarian move in a GPP, or do you actually think this is a pretty reasonably high floor?
I think it's a high floor. I mean, I don't mind it for a cash game either. Dallas is allowing the 10th most FanDuel points per game to tight ends. 28% DVOA, a good matchup here, I think, in terms of game flow for Cameron Brate in the primetime game. As I mentioned earlier, 6 touchdowns tied with Kyle Rudolph, 6 targets per game. I think at 5,700, I think Rudolph's going to gain a little bit more ownership just because Indy is just such a glaring hole against tight ends this year. But obviously, I think Dallas has been too. I don't think a lot of people are expecting much out of Tampa's offense, and also just because I do worry a little bit because Dallas is a good team at just running like 6-7 minute quarters. Like,
yeah,
they're just so good at that. So, I mean, that's always scary for opposing teams, especially at home. for Dallas. So I think that's my one real worry, and that's kind of where I put him in terms of a swerve off of Rudolph.
The Now that could certainly go that way, but I think as you mentioned, ownership's going to be on your side as well. Uh, and I love thinking of narratives and what's going to happen in games and what the headlines are going to be. Dak coming off a really tough game last week where he had his worst game of the year. Buccaneers defense has been playing well. If he struggles again, I mean, this situation could get really awkward, and I think, there is some anxiety amongst the Cowboys right now, and that situation could get really awkward. So if he makes a mistake early, it could be a pretty wild game. So that's what I'm looking at there. Jermaine Gresham, 4,500 min price against the Saints. What do you like about that matchup?
I haven't listed his GPP, but he's cash. He's certainly a cash game play in terms of lineup construction. I mean, you want to use Bell and Johnson and get some reasonable 6K wideouts in there. You use Gresham. 4,500, as you said, bare min. No Michael Floyd with the Arizona Cardinals anymore. Fitzgerald's been kind of in and out of this offense in terms of production of late. It's been a lot of, Jermaine Gresham. I mean, we've seen over his last 5 games in terms of targets, 7, 6, 10, 2, and 6. That 2 was against Minnesota. I just think here, I mean, John Brown possibly out on or limited snaps. Gresham's going to be a guy. And you look at this total, I mean, near 4 touchdowns. I'm expecting Arizona to have a decent day at home. I think just given the fact that he has heated up in this offense of late, I mean, double-digit FanDuel points in 3 of the last 4 games. He's there for me. I mean, I think cash for GPP, he really works in because he can give you a decent ceiling for that price tag. And I think the salary relief in terms of a cash aspect is kind of more appealing.
And just think, like 10 years ago, Jermaine Gresham was catching bombs from Sam Bradford at Oklahoma. What a combo. What a combo. Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you here. Even JJ Nelson limited in practice. So the deep ball, I just don't know how they're going to move the ball down the field other than with David Johnson. So I think Gresham and Fitz are going to be the dump off guys and really the intermediate passing game. So I like that quite a bit. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we head out?
No, I mean, these are basically the only 4 that I've ever seen put into my lineup so far this week. Usually I have a couple of lingers, but not really on anyone else.
Right. Absolutely. As always, thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, certainly give us a like and subscribe on the YouTube videos and page. If you want to check out this article, head over to dailyfantasycafe.com to enjoy the sultry, sweet words of Jason. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.